Hello, my name is Jimena Solorza, and for my screencast poetry presentation, I will be analyzing the poem Bird Norton. First, I will do a quick presentation outline. First, I will introduce the thesis, then the poem structure, then going into analyzing the poem, and finally, moral lessons. As mentioned before, the poem that I will be analyzing is Bird Norton by T.S. Eliot. So, my thesis for this presentation will be the following. Bird Norton is about the nature of time and how everything that will happen and has happened is going to influence your present life. This shows how through accepting the order of things and why these events occur, you will be at peace in the rose garden, which is an allusion to the Garden of Eden, which represents a peace with God and the universe. Now, a little bit of background information is that this poem was written in 1935, and it is the first out of four poems that altogether make up the four quartets. We also need to keep in mind that in this point in T.S. Eliot's life, he had just moved to London. Keep in mind that he's an American writer and left his wife behind, which is important to know in order to understand the meaning of the poem further in the presentation. Now we will go into the poem structure. T.S. Eliot makes the poem rhyme through the repetition of words like future, past, present, and time to convey his message. It is also a lyrical poem. This poem does not have established rhythm, and it is a regular poem. It has a total of 178 lines and a total of 5 sections. Now, I have picked this part of the poem to represent the repetition of words. It says, time present and time past are both perhaps in time future, and time future contained in time past. If all time is eternally present, all time is unredeemable. As you can see, a lot of repetition. Now we would go into the analysis of the poem. First, I have section 1, and I have picked some parts of the section to reflect and analyze. It says, time past and time future, what might have been and what has been, point to one end, which is always present. What might have been is an abstraction, remaining a perpetual possibility, only in a world of speculation. What might have been and what has been point to one end, which is always present. Footfalls echo in the memory, down the passage which we did not take, towards the door we never opened, into the rose garden. My words echo thus in your mind. The first section of this poem talks about how the future and the past are concentrated in the present time, and how humans often wonder all the things they didn't do, all the doors we never opened, down the passage which we did not take. However, it then says into the rose garden. This is telling the reader that the decisions they didn't make didn't lead them to the rose garden, which, as mentioned before, is an allusion to the Garden of Eden, which symbolizes the peace and happiness between humans and God. This is important to remember because we will hear a lot about the rose garden since it is an important symbol throughout the story. Now we will go into section 2. I have picked this part that says, time past and time future, allow but a little consciousness. To be conscious is not to be in time, but only in the time, in the moment in the rose garden, the moment in the arbor where the rain beat, the moment in the dirty church at Smokeful be remembered, involved with past and future. Only through time, time is conquered. In the second part of this poem, we continue to see the author's understanding about time and how it says that to be conscious is not to be in time because it to be conscious refers to the memories. And what he's trying to tell us is that we live a lot remembering the good moments we had, but then he says that to live on time is to live in the moment, to live in the present, and only by living in the time can we reach the rose garden. Once again, because through time, time is conquered. This is telling us that to reach the rose garden, we need to live in the present time, because once again, to be in time is to be present, and only through living in the present will we reach that state of happiness. Now we're going into section 3 of the poem. It says, descend lower, descend only into the world of perpetual solitude. World, not world, but that which is not world. Internal darkness, deprivation, and destitution of all property. Desiccation of the world, evacuation of fancy, and apparency of the world of spirit. Here is a place of disaffection, time before and time after. In a dim light, neither daylight, investing form with lucid stillness. As it says in the presentation, I can see that this part of the story, instead of explaining how time works as the previous sections, it talks about losing faith because they live in a world of perpetual solitude, of internal darkness, of deprivation, of an apparency of the world of spirit. This part is proven that the rose garden is related to Christianity and to the spiritual connection between humans and this place of happiness and peace in that part that it says in appearance of the world of spirit. It is about modern society losing hope and the solitude of the modern society. Now we're going into section 4, and this is the shortest section that goes like this. Time and the bell have buried the day. The black cloud carries the sun away. Will the sunflower turn to us? Will the clematis stray down, bend to us, tendril and spray, clutch and cling? Chill. This section of the poem is the shortest section with only 10 lines, and it is different to the previous ones that it has more rhyme, as we can see in day and away and spray. It has more rhythm to it. However, the stanza ends with the word chill, which I take to be going back to the previous section that is talking about how cold modern spirituality is, and it keeps talking about the concept of time, and the dark cloud goes back to the chill part of the cold and modern spirituality. Now we are going into the fifth and last section that goes like this. Desire itself is movement, not in itself desirable. Love is itself unmoving, only the cause and end of movement, timeless and undesiring, except in the aspect of time, caught in the form of limitation between unbeing and being. There rises the hidden laughter of children in the foliage. Quick now, here, now, always. Ridiculous the waste sad time, stretching before and after. In this section of the poem, I notice a lot of paradox in the part of love and desire, since it refers to moving and unmoving, contradicting themselves. Also, the words desire and love are words that, when thinking of roses, come up, which goes back to the rose garden, thus the allusion of the Garden of Eden. It also talks about the laughter of the children, which was mentioned in the first section, and it then says, ridiculous the waste sad time stretching before and after, telling us how, because we focus too much on what will happen and what has happened, we lose a lot of our precious time, when we should be focusing on the present time in order to reach the rose garden. Now, here are the moral lessons that I took from this poem. First is the present time. This poem suggests how humans need to learn that the past and the future are concentrated in the present, and how they need to live their life on the present instead of wondering in the what ifs and what will happen. It also talks about spirituality. It shows how men lose faith in life when taking a wrong path, but that through time you will get through it and reach the rose garden, which is this utopian place full of happiness and peace. And before I conclude, I wanted to share 3 images that I think captured the essence of the poem. The first image of the clock is showing how life is limited and it starts fading away. But if we focus on the tomorrows and yesterdays instead of the today, we will never truly live. The second image is the division between life and death, and how life can have its moments of doubt and suffering, but that we should never give up on the faith of reaching a happy and peaceful state of mind. And finally, the third image is the rose garden, which is the ultimate goal for the narrator to reach that rose garden and that mental state that comes with it. And finally, my conclusion, as mentioned in my thesis, this poem talks about time and its relationship with the peace and happiness of humans by trying to reach the rose garden that only through time we will reach. It is a moving story that has its ups and downs, reflecting and capturing the essence of how life actually is, full of doubt and hope and happiness and sadness, all the emotions captured in one moment, in one poem. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.